No one is quite sure what exactly makes you unable to perceive things, as most rational human beings would perceive those same things. We don't know if it's some type of physical limitation, willful ignorance, or deliberate action upon your part. And honestly, at this point, I personally think it's some combination of all three. You make it seem like it's atheists and evolutionists playing a game with you, and you think throwing down your victim trump card from your deck of empty rhetoric is somehow a valid strategy. You use the term atheist and evolutionist almost interchangeably, not recognizing that atheism is a theological position and evolution, as an evolutionary theory, is a confirmed, explanatory, and predictive model in biology that explains biodiversity. I cannot personally even recall any time in any of my hangouts when any atheist attacked you for your religious beliefs. In fact, I don't even allow or condone that form of behavior from anyone in my hangouts to personally attack the religious beliefs of anyone else, but only to attack the claims made by those who hold specific religious beliefs. You seem to have some type of persecution complex, thinking that it's us against you, when it is us and the entire scientific community against the nonsense you continually spew every time you open your mouth. Let me make some things clear for you in order to help you understand what the overwhelming amount of people in the Great Debate community have been trying to tell you. 1. No one cares who knows what. You're the only person who seems to be concerned with who knows more about what on a particular topic. While I wouldn't be so presumptuous to speak for Drag, I am fairly confident he would agree with me when I say that neither one of us give a damn if you think you know more than us, or if we know more than you. What we do care about is that you give people correct scientific information, and that is where you consistently fail. What makes us believe we're more intelligent than you is that we are smart enough to realize that if we want to educate ourselves properly, we try to surround ourselves with educated people. In fact, we try to surround ourselves with people much, much more educated and intelligent than us. You, however, do the exact opposite. Your hangouts are nothing more than a collection of people who refuse to recognize their own limitations and would rather disparage those with educations than go get one themselves. Instead of raising your level of education up, you feel the only way for you to have a quote-unquote level playing field is to try to disparage the education of the others, thinking it'll bring them down to your level. It just doesn't work that way, Ronnie. And this is a notable trait that you have, and people in this community have easily noticed it every time you've exhibited this type of behavior. 2. A formal education is helpful to understand scientific concepts, but no one is saying that it's absolutely required. You, however, refuse to acknowledge that you do not have the basics down to even begin to properly address many of the topics you discuss. To borrow from Drag, you try to approach many of these topics with a top-down approach, which would work if you were autodidactic. Ronnie, you're not autodidactic. 3. You've never refuted anyone. Ever. Your argument style is solely that of a playground bully who has to resort to try and beat up the other person by dishonest tactics, such as lowering their volume, raising your gain, muting them, talking over them, and continually interrupting them. Whenever you're presented with a line of rational argument, you shut down your interlocutory and you go into pure defense mode, where you have to control the conversation away from the argument being presented. 4. You say you want people to go on True Talk TV this Sunday and refute your arguments and that they are irrefutable. First of all, Ronnie, most of your arguments are not your arguments. They are arguments that you have gleaned from other people, and you just parrot them. I seriously doubt you ever have formulated an original or novel argument in your entire life, with the exception of such brilliant arguments like you claiming that DNA degrades in water. That particular argument was refuted by dozens of people in this community, including Tyler DeWitt, whose video you try to use to support that argument. Instead of recognizing you made just a simple mistake, you doubled, tripled, and quadrupled exponentially down on that gaffe to the point of being surreal. Or how about your argument on human chromosome number 2, which was just a parroting of an article by Dr. Tompkins? This was something you had never even heard of before until you had a discussion with Hogtie in a hangout, where you tried to delete that particular part from. Then, when it was noted to you, you said you had planned to re-upload them in different sections and parts in different videos, and you had them all ready to go on a computer and just needed to upload them, which never happened. All that had happened is that you restored the rest of the video with the part you did not want anyone else to see. You didn't want people to know you had never even heard of the fusion site of human chromosome number 2, but only a month or two later, you're trying to convince those same people that you're a self-proclaimed expert on it and reaffirming Dr. Tompkins' original article. Everyone that had refuted Dr. Tompkins' article in detail over a course of many hangouts are now blocked, and you refuse to even allow any of them, including myself, to post on your videos. Or how about your argument of motors and turbines and ATP mayonnaise? Oh my! Your go-to argument when you cannot understand any argument being presented to you, which is exactly what you did with Jake in a recent hangout when he presented to you an infinite regress problem of who intelligently designed God. You took it right back to ATP synthase, an electron transport chain, when he had told you that his argument had absolutely nothing to do with those things. Let me re-emphasize that word here, his, as you wouldn't even allow him to complete his argument, and you kept trying to turn it back to what you wanted to discuss. In reference to your argument, you've been refuted by Fiona countless times, with a refutation that you do not seem to understand, that we have only seen motors designed and built from a human mind. Unless you want to say ATP synthase is built from a human mind, you are committing a fallacy of division. Quick side note here. Speaking of fallacies, you continually assert that a scientific consensus is a fallacy ad populum, and you will never find a single academic source that would ever state this, because it is absolutely incorrect. Argumentium ad populum is when you assert that something is true because it is popular opinion. A scientific consensus does not mean that something is absolutely true, but it is the tentative position by experts in their field after they review the evidence. This again is a shining example of instead of trying to raise yourself up and educate yourself, you try to bring down everyone else, and this time including the entire scientific community. As much as this irks you, in science, the onus is upon you to refuse the established paradigm, not anyone else to educate you, explain to you why you're wrong, or why the currently held model is correct. 5. I will be highly recommending in this video to anyone who watches it, not to engage on your channel or in any hangout you have mod controls. You have demonstrated yourself to be far too incapable of using them properly, which is surprising because you have had hangouts in the past, long ago, where you actually did a fairly decent job in moderation. If you want to have a hangout this Sunday, then how about you come to my room, where we can have a completely free exchange of conversation from people who have been asking to address your arguments. If you have a unique argument, then present it in an argumentative form within a reasonable experimentation procedures and a methodology on how to determine if your arguments are valid. For example, if you assert that in evolutionary theory it requires small incremental changes to form large morphological changes, then devise an experiment to falsify this, to demonstrate that it cannot happen. Instead of relating it to some malformed statement of you asking for small changes to suddenly produce an entire new organ or body part, that is not what evolutionary modeling would predict. Be specific in what you would expect to see in an experiment, and come up with one to test it. Just throwing around words like mechanism or demonstrate won't win you the Nobel Prize, Ronnie. If you want to falsify evolutionary theory, then you need to make it more formal, and give us your assertion and your experiment to demonstrate your assertion, and let us see if it's reasonably something that can be tested. I will invite Fiona, Hogtie, CRISPR, Rational Mind, Daryl, Sam the Scientist, and anybody else who wants to join us, and it'll be an actual fair and level playing field where you do not have mods and the arguments can stand on their own merits. How about 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is 10 p.m. in Europe, so it should be a good time where anybody can attend. In summary, Ronnie, no one wants to hear your passive-aggressive videos claiming that atheists and evolutionists have won. We want you to actually understand why you are demonstrably wrong in every single one of your arguments and every single one of your claims. If you would just put away your confirmation bias and remove your creationist perception filter and actually listen to the people who do know these topics far better than you, then perhaps you may stop being mocked in this community or thought of being as a complete imbecile. If you want to be taken seriously, then act like somebody who wants to be taken seriously.